Hello and welcome to End Focus, coming to you this week from the shop in the casino. My name is Hilka. I am your host, as always. Joining me today is not my co-host, Rosalie. We'll talk about that more in a second. But first, I would like to remind everybody that we have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/gamepodular. If you want to send us money there, you can. You don't have to, but we would really appreciate it. If you're listening to this on YouTube, youtube.com/@gamepodular. Hey, source us an interaction, put a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're not. Also, very much appreciated. Now, this is going to be a little different of an episode than what you're used to. Rosalie's on vacation, and so we decided we wanted to do something new and interesting, and to that end, I have lined up an interview with a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. It's not every day somebody calls me special, so I'll take that. I'm Wout. I am the communications director at Playstack. Playstack is recently mostly known for Balatro, I suppose. We've done a lot of work with that. And we also launched Abiotic Factor last week, actually. And we have a pretty cool lineup. And my job is to be responsible for the PR, for the influencers. And I have a team with me, not with me on the call, that are taking care of all the social media for all the accounts and the community management. So it's kind of a big group of work that I overlook, but it's been a lot of fun. We had a crazy year, so always fun to talk shop with someone who's interested in what I do for a living.
Yeah, and that's sort of the way I'm approaching this, both for myself and for my audience, because I feel like there might be a lot of not misgivings, not the right word, just a sort of lack of general information about what being in PR entails and how it works. And I figured, like, hey, you mentioned Balatro earlier, and I don't mean for it to be like the only game we talk about, because again, you did do Abiotic Factor very recently, but given how much of a hit and how surprising it felt, even though we'll get into a little later about how that may not have been as surprising as people think, I felt like I wanted to get more information out there in the world.
That's always good, because I do see sometimes some hot takes where I'm like, ooh, should I respond to this or no? Or maybe people just don't know it, and maybe we should be more transparent about this stuff. So always happy to talk about this, about the work that goes into it, and how about it's not always just luck, and sometimes luck is just like being at the right time at the right place and benefiting from it a little bit.
But also just doing a lot of hard work, I imagine.
So much hard work. So many spreadsheets and emails.
So I guess at the start is you already sort of described what your role is. How did you get into this industry, as it were? How did you get into PR?
Oh, that's actually a funny story. I'm not sure if you have time for funny stories.
Oh yeah, we do a little both on this podcast.
That's good, because my career is a little odd the way it started, and I don't think it should be like a blueprint for anyone looking to get into the video game industry. But it all started when I made a parody account of a puppet cat from Game Trailers. I'm not sure if you are familiar with the old channel. It's now Easy Allies. Before that, they were Game Trailers.
Oh, wow. That's a neuron that hasn't fired in a very long time.
There you go, yeah. So they had this skit about a cat that wanted to go to E3. So he kind of breaks into the building and just starts working at Game Trailers. That's the whole skit. It was very funny. And then in the end, he got to go to E3. I was just a dude on the internet who was looking at everything I could read about video games, about the industry. I was just very interested because I was working in industry in electricity. Wasn't really like a passion. I always wanted to be involved in games, but it's quite hard to get your foot in the door, I guess. So I enjoyed that. I enjoyed a lot of the content. And then the next year, I thought they were gonna do it again, like a part 2 or like a follow up to that big skit, but it never
Makes
happened.
sense.
So what I did is I created a Twitter account for that cat Buttons, and I just started pretending like the cat did that I was part of the video game industry. And I started like interacting with like video game people. And how I did that, it was often like they would do a tweet and I would Photoshop like their tweet in a funny way, and it got a lot of attention. And it got so much attention that people thought that I was legitimately part of Game Trailers and just running their social media account, which was not true. So that felt not great, because you don't want to be in, like, we all talk about imposter syndrome, but you don't want to be like an actual imposter.
Yeah.
But by then I had like made like a lot of like connections, like social friends with some big names in the industry. And one of them was Andrea Renee. She was also with Game Traders. She was What to Do Games, and she knew that I was not from Game Traders, but she was still like very supportive of like. She said like, you should just do something on your own, like on your own name, and I think you have a lot of talent. You should just do that. So I rebranded the account. Like I came clean for Buttons account. Like, hey, this was just a joke. Got out of hand because I had like thousands of followers on that account at that point.
Yeah.
So like, guys, the fun is out. Like I never intended to be like an actual imposter. Hey, this is me. I'm the hashtagonist. That's how I rebranded myself. Then with another cartoon cat, I was still kind of anonymous in that time because I was working in a very serious job, and that would not cross over well with gaming discourse. Could really afford people to like email my work if I did something that they didn't like. So I was still fairly a distance there. But I still had the network that I built from like all these funny Photoshops and my online presence. And then one day, a PR agency called Evolve PR, they tweeted that they were looking for a social media manager. And as soon as that tweet came out, I think about 100 people tagged me in that tweet.
Wow.
And it was perfect timing because we just had a reorg at my day job, and I was made redundant, so I had nothing. And that was always kind of the barrier, that I didn't feel comfortable to restart my career and take like restart at the bottom of the ladder. But at that point, there was no more ladder. I was already at the bottom because I had nothing. So it was a more natural step for me to take that chance on a new job in social media. And I sent my resume, and because they had seen my name pop up like 100 times when they put that tweet out, it was a fairly easy match for them.
Nice, love to see it.
Exactly. So I started there, then had to become a person, of course. So another rebrand for my social media account where it was just my own name. And then I did social media management there for about a year. And then they noticed, like, hey, I think you would be, because they are mostly a PR agency, that I think you'd be pretty good at the PR gig as well. So maybe you would like to switch like departments. I was like, yeah, that sounds good. And that kind of clicked for me there. Got to work on a couple of really cool projects. Mortal Shell was one of the biggest projects I did, I think, at Evolve.
Nice.
And then for 4 years I worked there. And then at the end of that time, like the stretch was out of it for me a little bit. At an agency, you can only do so much, right? Because you'll never become the new owner of the agency. That's just like you grow a little bit, you do more job, you get bigger project. But that was kind of it. And then Playstack reached out because Mortal Shell was one of their games when we still worked together. They were at that point no longer a client, and they were like, we're gonna bring a lot of PR stuff in-house. Would you be interested in a position within Playstack? And I was like, yes, that sounds fantastic. So moved to Playstack, worked there on a couple of projects that they were still ongoing. And then Balatro happened. And that's had become my life then for about a year and a half, I suppose. I mean, we've still launched like 4 other games during Balatro as well, that sometimes get a little bit overshadowed, I think, by the success of Balatro, but not every indie game is like the indie game, right? So it becomes the conversation quite easily, even though like a game like Abiotic Factor is probably doing just as well as Balatro did, but it's a different audience. It doesn't break through in in other media's channels that you saw Balatro, and so now mostly known for Balatro. And I think what also happened was because the creator, Local Thunk, he's also very anonymous. So I got to speak on his behalf often. So when he started winning all these awards, I got to accept his award at the Game Awards, which is crazy. Like being there as a PR person, like that is about as good as it gets, right? Because usually us PR folks, we kind of work in the shadows and we help other people look good. And now I had to make him look good, but in front of a 100 million audience, which was slightly stressful. But yeah, that made me kind of the spokesperson for Balatro last year, and that's why a lot of people see my name pop up and see my face pop up. But it's been a fantastic year for Playstack, for myself, and of course for the games that we represent. So yeah, that's kind of how that happened from my illustrious time as a fake cat to now someone who's been in front of cameras for some reason talking about my job. So it's just quite a interesting journey, I would say.
For sure, yeah. And I confess, like, I have known about you for not quite since the Buttons days.
Yeah.
But I just, like, when I joined Twitter, because I was sort of in the same sort of, like, I just want to, like, read as much about games as I possibly can. So I just started following people, just loads of people, including a lot of Dutch people, because as
of course, yeah.
It doesn't sound like it, but I am actually Dutch. I was born here, and I didn't live here for a while, but I have for the last... Oh, God. Oh, no. That's a way bigger number than I thought it would be. 13 years?
Yeah.
Again?
Well, we both do very well not speaking like Dutch people on English. Just a little for the Dutch people to get offended about their own accent, but that's what my mom sounds like when she speaks English too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've encountered my fair share of that accent over the years for sure. So, something you said with regards to audiences for Balatro and Abiotic Factor is something that I've been wondering about for a while, and it's something I prepared a question about. How... Because in PR, correct me if I'm wrong, a significant step feels like it should be like identifying an audience, right?
Yeah.
Like, who do we want to market this game to that we think will be interested in it?
Yeah, and I think for some games that is easy, and for other games it's very hard. I think if you are in a very specific niche, like a Souls-like, you can kind of find your audiences in online communities fairly easily. But I think what made Balatro such an interesting game is that everybody likes it. And that sounds easy to market in a way, because if everybody likes it, then you can sell to everyone. But it's also very hard to build a campaign around, because you're talking to everyone at the same time. Like if you look at our reviews on Apple Arcade, we have 17,000 reviews, and it's still 5 stars. Like that means that like everybody who tries it likes it. But that means I either have to have a very broad message about what the game is, and then it kind of loses its punch, or I have to be very specific to you like roguelikes. But my mom doesn't know what a roguelike is, but she still enjoys card games. You have to be very careful about what we call like unique selling points you talk about. And for Balatro, the biggest challenge I think was, and I did a GDC talk about this, which is freely available if anyone wants to look it up. It's about an hour long if you really want to get into the weeds, which I called it was a pain in the assets to market. Because if you look at the game on a screenshot, all you see is 5 cards that don't mean anything to you. You don't know which Joker is. And then it's just playing cards. So how do you get people excited about that?
Yeah.
And from one end, it's very accessible because people do recognize Jokers in general. Like not all of them, but like the aesthetic of playing cards is very familiar for a lot of people. But they might not all understand the game mechanics. So that was quite challenging to get to find an audience for that. So I knew, well, we knew, because there's a lot of people who worked on this game, especially the marketing director Liz, my coworker. We saw that when we did a trailer, it almost did nothing. Like, people didn't talk about it, people didn't click it, people didn't view it very well. But we knew, because we were playing this game after we signed it, and we couldn't stop. So we knew that all we have to do is get people to play it. And if it's not out there, the second best thing is to watch other people play it. So we knew quite early that streamers and influencers were going to be key in getting this game out there. So that became the audience in the beginning. Before we would talk to like the general audience, the people who want to buy the game, we knew our audience had to be influencers, streamers, and that's kind of how that started. And there's a whole theory around it as well that I'll gladly dig into. But identifying your players is easy when it's everyone, but it's also very hard when it's everyone to do it well. Well, for Abiotic Factor, it was slightly easier because survival craft is a very specific genre. If you like that kind of stuff, you can just like, I have tools that I can look up. Okay, who has streamed Grounded, for example, which is now a big game, right? And I can kind of get myself a target list saying, oh, these are the people and these are their audiences. So that makes it a little bit easier. For Balatro, there was not really a comparative title that I would be like, oh, I can grab just these people. So I had to grab like 6 groups of people and kind of manage to see what they would like to see and how they would connect with some of the gameplay mechanics or some of the visuals. Or but it was quite interesting. And there's so much work that goes into that before we even send our first email. And I think a lot of people don't really understand like the research that goes into these things. But that's a lot of fun. Like, that's what makes the job challenging and rewarding when it works.
Yeah, because, I mean, I have to confess here, I have not actually played a lot of Balatro myself. I am one of the few people in the world who does not enjoy roguelikes, and so I bounced off of it pretty quickly. But it's visually, like, you kind of have to see it in motion, and you kind of have to see it, like, at least to me, it seems like you have to see it at a reasonably high level as well. Because like all roguelikes, it starts small, right? Yeah. And then the further into the run you go and the further just into the game you go with more like different scenarios, you get flashier animations and bigger numbers and more interesting combos and stuff.
Exactly. And I think that feel is just a combination of feeling smart when you do a good combination of the sound effects, of the little dopamine drips that the game gives you when stuff goes well, the challenge of almost making it, right? The one more run feel that kicks in that roguelikes are so known for, like, I'll get it next time. Like, those are all things that only work once you play it. But like I said, it's not for everyone. If roguelike is like a turn-off for you, then it might not work for you. But that's what I mean. Like, oh, you might be interested in card games, but not necessarily into roguelike. So what do if I sell this to you as a card game, then you might walk away from like, oh, this is like a roguelike. And that's the thing I don't like. So that was part of the challenge, I suppose. But yeah, playing it, for me, like, I have like, I don't know, 1,000 hours in Balatro. Wow. Some professional and some not. So yeah, that's it's definitely it was definitely a challenging game to put out there, but I think it did all right.
Yeah. One or two people have played it since then.
Yeah, since then. Yeah. Well, it's funny because Local Thunk, he made it for like 6 people. Like, that was his goal, right? To make it for a bunch of friends, and then some of them were like, this is really good. You should like do something with this idea, and then it snowballed into what it is today, which is very funny to me, knowing him and his plans and how he enjoys making games, and to what this became was probably not on his radar at all.
And this sort of brings up a thing that we mentioned earlier a little bit, which is the idea that you brought up in that game developer article, which was the wheel of attention. Yeah. That you sort of, and when I say you, I mean like the royal you, the team, started with small, like you identified that streamers were going to be a major part of the campaign. And so you identified like streamers that played games that would be enthusiastic about it based on what they played. And you started small and you sort of worked your way up to the bigger names.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Because you were also using like word of mouth between streamers to be like, they start small and then they talk to their streamer friends to be like, hey, if you get an email from Playstack about this Balatro game, you should absolutely stream it.
Exactly, and not just that, because part of like I made the wheel of attention for my presentation. So it was media, it was influencers, and also community. And community was also very important on this, because when we started, media did not care, and it's not like media didn't see that we had gold. It was like I sent them a video, I sent them a screenshot. There's no way people were going to click on that until it became popular. So that spoke in the wheel was dead to me in the beginning, because I knew I would not get their attention, and because they wouldn't get clicks, and it's an attention economy, and they have to justify editorial time. So that was fine, but I knew when people would play it, like I said, that would get people excited. And what I became aware of, and I think every PR or influencer manager should be aware of, is that a lot of people who watch streamers are not very streamer agnostic, right? So if you watch one person, then they go offline, and then they go to another channel that they like, and they go offline, they go to another. Like, you probably watch a couple of streamers. I'm sure people there that only watch one person, but so if you see one of your streamers really enjoy this game, Balatro, and then you go to the other streamer, and then chat is going to be like, hey, you should check out this Balatro game. Like Northern Lion was streaming it, for example, because he was one of our big early streamers who found it organically, because Dan Giesling recommended to him very early in the beginning. So that was just his audience talking to another audience and talking to another audience. And then we started to like siphon off basically that audience into our own Discord. So they had a place to talk about strategy. They had a place to talk about streamers and kind of thinking, I wonder what this card is going to do. Because there was a couple of stuff out there that they could only see the cards and not the effects and that kind of stuff.
Like Magic the Gathering.
Exactly. And what allowed us to do there was I could go then to media, because I still wanted them to be a part of it. I wanted them to review it. I wanted them to write about it, because the streamers, and that's why I called it the wheel, because it's like a constant circle of attention. Influence would discover it from other outlets that they read about, because they are still also often interested in the industry, right? So when media sees chatter on social media, they're like, oh, there's an audience for this, so maybe I will post the trailer next. Because I see a lot of people talking about Balatro on social media. Then media picks it up, and then a streamer I was not able to reach yet sees an IGN or PC Gamer article, and like, I should check this game. I really like roguelikes, which brings their audience back into the community. So more people are now talking about the game. There's more incentive for media, and that's how that wheel how I call it, started spinning. And at some point it was out of control. Like there was so much conversation around that game even before it launched, by doing like smart marketing beats in between, and then it just took off from there.
You've described a really interesting dilemma that it sounds like to me that you have to, like, at least in this scenario, and maybe it's worked differently in other games, but in order for the game to become more popular, you had to force it to be popular, essentially.
Yeah, exactly. Line by line, I think that's in my presentation. Like, you have to become popular by being popular, which is the hardest thing to do. And that's why it was so important to start small. Like, we did a Balatro tournament with 6 people. And we knew that would be a good match, like car players, and they already had shown interest in the first demo. But audience-wise, it was like, I don't know, 30, 40,000 like viewers maybe that they could bring in. But what we got from there was, first, it was a very engaged audience because everybody wanted to go to streamers. And we said, hey, the winner of this tournament gets to give away 200 keys at launch, which is like 200 copies of the game. Everybody else gets to give away 100 copies of the game. So what I always talk about in my job as PR is you have to create a win-win scenario. Whoever you work with, whether it's media, influencers, YouTubers, streamers, they need to benefit from your product. Because if only you as the publisher or the developer benefits from the attention they give it, that's not a healthy relationship, right? Either they need to attract new audience, either they need to be able to make good content out of it that puts views on their channels, or their reviews need to get clicks, so their ad revenue goes up. Like, there needs to be a win on their end. And I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but like when you just get started, you are looking for your win. Like, oh, I need coverage, I need reviews, I need streamers to play my game. Okay, but what do they get out of it? Like, that is always the pitch that you need to be aware of. Like, why is this interesting for you to stream? Because sometimes you have budget. Like, sometimes you can pay a streamer, hey, can you play this for a couple hours, and then you have a contract and all that kind of stuff. But not always. You can't pay every single streamer out there when you're doing a campaign. So you still need to find the benefit for them. And what I found important is you also have to realize that everybody is an influencer. Like, often when we talk about influence, we're like, oh, we take a streamer and they're going to influence their audience. But that's not just true, because the influence also goes sideways. Like, streamers influence each other. And that's why you often see when a game blows up, everybody wants a piece of that pie, right? If a game gets really big, other streamers also jump on the game because they also want to have a piece of that audience, because people will show up for it. And so I noticed that influencers started influencing each other, but also media started to influence each other. Like Jason Schreier was like a big fan from the beginning. So he started talking about it. And then the people who he interacts with, like other writers that follow him, and he has quite the audience.
Yeah.
It was like a seal of approval, I think, in a way, where they're like, oh, I also got an email about Balatro. I should check this out. And he did the same thing for Case of the Golden Idol, which was also a smaller game that not a lot of people paid attention to, because it was also visually not very enticing for people to pick up. Fantastic game, like overwhelmingly positive on Steam still. But would you call Jason Schreier an influencer? No. But for his peers, he kind of is, because his word means a lot. So if he gets super excited about a game, other writers might be more interested in also picking up and reviewing it. So those were all those little pawns that I was looking at, like, hey, what does my board look like? And this play is going very well, and now I can attack it from the other side with my community that I can send to a streamer because we're doing a contest, and then they all of a sudden see 400 new viewers in their channel. So that was all these little pieces that kind of had to be put together, and that made it very fun and rewarding at the end. But for that machine to start, it was a lot of work.
And so let's do a little bit of comparison then, because Balatro, as you said, was kind of a very unique situation, given how broad its appeal is, and finding the way to market to a very broad audience is, as you mentioned, very difficult. When you have something as more straightforwardly niche, do you get what I mean when I say that?
Well, I think a great example is Mortal Shell 2. Like, Mortal Shell 1 did pretty good, like sold over 1 million copies. It's a beautiful Souls-like game. Like, the art in this game is fantastic. Did very well. Now we announced Mortal Shell 2 this summer at Summer Game Fest, and that is pure trailer, right? We opened the show. Thanks, Jeff, for that one. You don't get a say in that. So we opened Summer Game Fest with like a fantastic trailer. It was gory, it was hardcore, it was very combat focused. And that campaign is going to be based solely on that, like on spectacle, on like an IGN will gladly post that trailer because they're going to get hundreds of thousands of views on their channels from it, right?
Yeah.
If I send a screenshot, people are like, this enemy looks amazing. Sorry, there goes your first banjo sound.
Yeah,
that slipped out.
Don't worry.
And that makes it a completely different campaign. Like, if you come out hot from the start, everything after that is easier, because that win-win scenario is almost immediately evident for streamers, for media. People will want to see more because it was on a big stage, a big trailer. yes, more please. Like, give me another trailer, give me a gameplay clip, give me that. And that's just because the audience is one, it's already there. It's a huge audience for it, and visually it still works. Like, there's a reason why a Game Awards gets 100 million viewers, because people just love looking at pretty trailers. It's a spectacle. It's fun. It's cool. You get excited. The music is good, and that is a much more straightforward campaign, which is also still challenging, because you have to find the right trailers and you have to find the right teams to make it pop, and find out, like, what are we going to focus on now? Like, we've shown environments, but we haven't shown a lot of enemies. Or do we want to show weapon variety? Like, what does the Souls-like community care about in a trailer like this? Or is it otherwise it's going to be like, oh, it's another Souls-like? Like, what makes your game stand out? And you have to be able to sell that as well, and to seek it out in what you have, because you don't always have a full game to pull from. But that's way more straightforward. Big trailer, big buzz, and then you just build off that hype. And then we'll take it from there. But a game like Balatro or Abiotic Factor or Case of the Golden Idol, which are very gameplay focused mechanics, extremely good games, but don't trailer well. Actually, Abiotic Factor trailer is pretty good, but it's like a 90s aesthetic, which for some people is like, oh, this game looks like a Super Nintendo game.
That's a big selling point.
It's an artistic choice. So that makes every game different. I think there is a lot of like transferable campaign beats that you can use between games, but you can never just phone it in and say like, oh, we're going to run the Balatro campaign on the Abiotic campaign. It would never work.
Yeah. So, speaking of running the different campaigns, like, I can't immediately think of an example that you've personally worked on, to the best of my knowledge. So this might be a hypothetical, but I got an interesting question about this from actually Jan Willem Nijman of Flambeer, because I sort of asked around in like some indie game communities about like what would people want to learn about, and he asked a really interesting question, which was, if, like, hypothetically, Playstack signs a game and says, hey, we want this game to do really well, do your PR magic, as it were. Yeah. And you do it, and it just doesn't work. For whatever reason, there can be hundreds of scenarios and factors. It just doesn't work. What do you do in that situation?
Yeah, I think for some of those titles, and it does happen, like when I was agency side, sometimes that just happens, right? You put all the work in, you have a cool trailer, and then, for example, the gameplay just isn't there, or like, or the hype for a certain genre just passes. And I think we've seen that a couple times with certain genres that just pop up out of nowhere and then die down real quick. If you were too late to look at genre, it doesn't matter what to do, and then I think it kind of falls off. But there are still ways to, I think, get the most out of your titles, and a big part of that is also Steam. Like, do not, and sometimes this is very not frustrating to me, but like, I can be extremely good at my job and have the best campaign in the world, and then I run a 25% discount on Steam, and that will blow everything I've ever done out of the water, like sales-wise or wishlist-wise. And I think then you go back to a more traditional marketing model with advertising on Reddit, and you put little clips out there, and you just try to play as the Steam algorithm as well as you can. But if the game is good, I think you can always make it shine by finding your audience. And for some developers, they might have thought, okay, this game is so good, I'm going to sell 10 million copies, which is very, very rare, obviously. But then I think managing expectations, like, okay, maybe you can hit like 80% of the audience that you had in mind, which is significantly smaller, but you're still reaching the right people. And then you can control word of mouth, right? It like I think I mentioned before, it's an attention economy as well. And I've had titles where I had a really good game. I'm not going to say which game it was because I don't want to make anyone feel bad about this. We had a whole campaign, and the day that it comes out, or the day we announce it, Untitled Goose Game also gets announced on the same release date that we had.
Oof,
And
yeah.
and that was it. Like, that was all people talked about. That's all people want to talk about. That's what got all the attention. And that doesn't mean your game was bad. That doesn't mean your campaign was bad. It just means like you got blown out of water by something you had no control over. And I think what we see now a lot, and I think pretty much every PR person I know is so happy that we know that when GTA 6 is going to come out.
Yeah.
Because that was such like
that is the exact example I was thinking
of. Where like, please give us a release date because I need to plan like my whole year around this. And I think there's a theory that like a game like that lifts all boats, because people are playing and people are reading other news articles as well. But I haven't really seen that in practice.
Okay.
But it's for Jan Willem's answer. Like it's a bit of a difficult question, I think, because if you run a fantastic campaign, you have the right assets, you're talking to the right people, you're talking to the right streamers, and it still doesn't work, like something is wrong, right? Then either the gameplay isn't coming through, you're not talking to the right people, and I think that's where it really comes down to, like, are you talking to the wrong people? And sometimes you might actually think you're talking to the right people, when you have like a very specific genre, like in the cozy world, for example. You might think your game is cozy, but it might have elements that are too hard. So your atmosphere might be cozy, but your gameplay is still too tricky. And then you just have a mismatch of audience. And then what you should do is go back to the drawing board, put it back out there, and position your game properly. But I think that those are the kind of challenges that you have to be on the floor for. And I think one of the examples I also gave in my talk is then it becomes important, like who's in charge of this. Like if you, for this game, for this hypothetical game, you had a PR agency that is going to do all this work for you, then you're very limited by time and budget, because they can do all the work in the world and it doesn't work, and then that's it, right? Your budget is done. If you do in-house, you can kind of run into that wall over and over again and change strategies until it works, because you have the luxury of time. But you might not have the contacts, you might not have the firepower to reach out to people. This is becoming a very long-winded answer. But it always comes down to...
I think it's very interesting, if nothing else.
Okay, that's at least there's that then. So I think not be afraid to go back to the drawing board and look at the problems that you have and reposition your audience, and maybe take a look at, is the game as good as you think it is?
That is something. I mean, I have no history with game development at all, but from like personal projects, I've done some like writing where I really believed in it and I thought it was really good, and nobody read it. Like I saw the WordPress analytics, I legit got like 7 hits. Yeah,
that's the worst. But it doesn't mean it's bad, right?
No,
it might just. Sometimes you just have to make what you want to make.
Exactly.
And funnily, like, and it's a stupid example because Balatro is the game that Local Thunk wanted to make. If nobody would have liked it, if he would have sold 10,000 copies, he would probably still be happy about it because it is the game that he wanted to make. But if you're like, that's easy for him to say because someone who just made this as a project. If you have a company with 200 people whose livelihoods depend on it, you can't be as casual about that. Like, oh, it's the game we wanted to make. Well, you still need to make sure that everybody gets paid and you get to work on the next project. But it must be hard though. Like, I'm not the developer either to let go of your vision just to make it a better selling product. And I think we see a lot of that with some publishers where when something feels a little off and like, this must have been the publisher to make it more profitable. I don't think it's always true, but there are sometimes situations where your vision just doesn't resonate, I guess, with people.
Yeah. Everybody's unique, right? Like
Exactly.
that's a thing to definitely keep in mind is you bring, especially when you're the main person working on this project, you bring so many of your own biases and so much of your own perspective, and it's very easy to imagine. No, let me try that again. It's very hard to imagine how other people would think about it
Yeah.
without just doing a bunch of what is essentially market research, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't know. I think we get cooler games if people embrace that a little bit, though, their own vision.
Yeah.
But again, it might be a bit of a luxury talk to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But otherwise,
you sort of have to write a line, I think,
Yeah. Yeah.
of like that you want it to be unique and interesting and definitively yours, but not in a way that causes too much friction when other people try to play it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's there's truth in there, and then part of that is maybe also manage your expectations. I think
Yeah.
a lot of people expect to sell 1 million copies, and I think a lot of players also think that every game sells 1 million copies, which is so not true. It is
Yeah.
so not true.
Yeah.
Like I think we get spoiled by attention of the successes that we see. But if you really look at the numbers of how many games get put on Steam every year, thousands of games that you've never heard of, that have just
Yeah.
never managed to break out of the noise, might be fantastic games. And that's why when we were at the GDC Awards, part of my spiel there when I accepted the award on Local Funk's behalf was, hey, sometimes just go to page 14, right, on Steam or
Yeah.
on the eShop and see what's there. It might not all be good, but you never know what kind of gems are hidden that just didn't have the marketing budget, that just had a campaign that didn't work. Doesn't mean the game
Yeah.
is bad at all.
Exactly. And you bringing up the eShop gives me a great segue into sort of another topic I wanted to ask about, because this is a Nintendo-focused podcast, and I would be remiss if I did not ask about the Nintendo version of Balatro.
Of course.
Because the one thing that I'm most curious about is, historically, Nintendo has been reticent to publish games with certain themes. Like, there's a reasonably famous story that's... Oh, I'm going to make myself really sad when I say this number out loud. But 10, 15 years ago,
Yeah.
Edmund Macmillan really wanted to put The Binding of Isaac on 3DS.
Yeah.
And Nintendo said, no, it has too many adult themes. We do not want it.
Yeah.
And Balatro, while not being a gambling game, has visual elements and gameplay elements that line up with poker. Was there any pushback from Nintendo in that regard at all?
No, I would not say. Like we I'm not sure how familiar you are with our launch week, but we did have the whole issue that we got delisted like a week after launch because our rating went up.
Yeah.
Like we had a rating, they revised it, became 18 plus, which triggered an automatic removal of the storefronts. That has since all been fixed, and we had a lot of conversations around that. So I don't want to like go too deep into that. It was fixed. It was a hassle, but nothing of that came from Nintendo. As a matter of fact, I think they've been pretty supportive of the game. It does very well on the platform, and it's absolutely great on the Switch too. And it's just the same version. It plays like a dream on the Switch too.
I
So
imagine so.
from that perspective, no, not at all. I actually talked to some Nintendo people who are just such big fans of the game, which was very
Nice.
funny. Like when I think it was Dice, someone from Nintendo came up to me like, "Oh, it's such a good game. I can't stop playing it. My whole family's playing it." I was like, I'm glad that they liked it. But I think that platform has also matured quite a bit, right? Because you can play The Witcher 3 on the Switch. You can play Cyberpunk now, I believe.
Yeah.
Like they are dipping into that audience a little bit. I think it's more like the gambling themes that is more like a regulated issue that they are just very aware of.
Yeah.
Because I think there's other examples where I didn't know the Binding of Isaac had that draw on the 3DS. Like 3DS era is a while ago, so I think they probably evolved from that quite a bit. I don't think there were any games that had like any form like of nudity or whatever on the 3DS back then, right? And nowadays it's a lot more prevalent in like games like you can play on Switch.
Yep.
I love
for
Binding
sure.
of Isaac. I love Binding of Isaac so much. I play it so much. I didn't even know it was around when it was 3DS was out there, man. Ed was on it back then already. Amazing.
Yeah.
But yeah, no. So from platform holders, like no, never had an issue and nothing but support from them. Like they even had us on a Nintendo showcase with the Friends of Jimbo 2, I think it was.
I believe so, yes.
Yeah.
I remember covering it for the podcast.
Yeah, I think it was the first Friends of Jimbo that we did.
Yeah, that was the one with Geralt?
Yeah, with Geralt,
with Witcher 3.
Among Us, Dave the Diver.
Yes. That one?
And
Yeah.
Vampire
Yeah.
Survivors. Yeah, that was the first one that we announced at Nintendo Showcase. In Indie Direct, I think it was. So yeah, no, super supportive. I know the gambling issue is sensitive, and I get it. But as we've talked about several times, like there's no gambling in Balatro.
Yeah.
It's just a layer of recognizability, I think, by making it poker themed, which made it so accessible to, I think, a lot of people.
Yeah. And sort of circling back to a thing to do with Nintendo and something we were talking about earlier is Nintendo's consoles tend to are, let's say, widely known. There was an article about this that I read like 2 weeks ago by now about like Nintendo's consoles having a pretty different audience than like the Xbox, the PlayStation, and maybe PC. That's debatable, in my opinion, but certainly Xbox and PlayStation. Were there any considerations that you made when specifically targeting like we want people to play like this on Switch, or were you just so confident in
Oh no, it was definitely
it's
part of
going
it.
so well?
No, mobility was so important, and that's why we saw such a good opportunity on the Switch. Like Steam Deck was out there, but there's not like a billion Steam Decks out there in the world.
No.
There's like a million gazillion
Steam Deck
billion.
is cool, but it's extremely niche.
Exactly. But Nintendo Switch, there's a lot of them. And this was because when the game came out, it came out on Switch, PlayStation, Xbox, PC. Switch was the only mobile platform back then, right? Before it came to phones. So a lot of people were taking it with them, like on flights and on bus rides and on car rides and all that kind of stuff. So the mobility of the Switch, I think, is what made it like so popular on the platform. Because I only play Balatro on the go, like whether it's on my phone, on my Steam Deck, or my Switch. Because I like playing it on the couch, I guess. And I know you can set up your PC on the couch and all that. But it's perfect because you can play, turn it off, pick it back up when you turn your Switch back on. And I think that was a huge selling point for a lot of people. And even for like second purchases, when you bought it on PC, like, this is also on Switch. I can play this on the go. I can play this when I'm on the bus to work or on the train or... and I think that was...
It is a very good game for commutes, I
exactly.
feel.
Because it's like, around 15-20 minutes. And also, if you in between, you can just turn it off and pick it back up, right? And that's perfect as well. So the Switch was definitely something we were looking at. Knowing that mobile would be a huge thing, because as soon as the game, when is this coming to mobile? But the only mobile platform back then was Switch, and I think a lot of people enjoyed it on the go. And it's such a great platform, especially now with the Switch 2. It's even more comfortable. But that's also still a growing market. So, and it works on both. You just buy it for Switch 1, it works on Switch 2. It's there's only
exactly.
So
That's very interesting.
Good old Switch market. Like how many did they have? Like how many Switches are out there? Like 100 million, something like that. Didn't they hit that number recently? Or
They did, yeah.
yeah,
And Switch 2 is also like now the fastest selling console of all
yeah,
time, which I confess, regular listeners of the podcast will know that I basically predicted that wouldn't happen,
yeah.
and I'm willing to admit that I was wrong about that.
Sometimes it's good to be wrong.
Yeah.
Go Nintendo. Whatever they do, man, they always nail it.
Yeah. So I put a pin in something mentally from earlier, and it's something you said about a game maybe not working as well as the developer thought it did. And I wanted to get a sort of alternate perspective on that, and that is, this could be hypothetical. Again, I don't know. If you personally, or the majority, or someone important on your team does not like the game, they just didn't connect with it for whatever reason, how do you separate your personal feelings on it from the PR and marketing? Because, like, to me, and I hope I'm not like insulting anybody when I say this, like, it would feel like lying to me to be like, hey, here's why you should play this game, and not say the even if I personally don't like it afterwards.
Yeah. Well, I think, yes, that's absolutely right. I think personal preference always factors into whether or not we sign a game. Like, we have a lot of people who look at the games that we're signing, but our team is very good at finding good games.
Okay.
And I've worked on games that I was not personally a fan of, like a genre mismatch or whatever, but I can still, and I think that's why it's important to have like a wide taste, or at least exposure to a lot of titles. Even if something doesn't click for me, I can still see quality in a game, and I can be honest about, if you're into this type of game, you're really gonna like what this game does in crafting, or like why is this a refreshing angle on a genre you've already played before. And that is something where you have to just take your own personal preferences out of it, because there's no way I'm gonna love every game we ever do. Like, there are genres I just don't personally play myself.
Yeah.
But I then have a team to me who can tell me and show me, like, no, this is why it's good, and then I take their selling points and I can turn that into an honest pitch, I think, to press. And I think reviewers might also struggle with that sometimes.
Yeah.
Not to open like a can of worms on that, but I think sometimes for some people it is very difficult to know the difference between this is bad and this is not for me.
Yes, that is something I struggle with sometimes as well.
Yeah, and it's with movies, that's with food, that's with games, that is with almost everything. Just because something's not for you doesn't mean it's bad. Sometimes things are just bad and it's not for anyone. But I think that's very, very rare. I think there's always someone out there who likes something of your game. And for me, my job is to find that, right? Maybe because I don't like it doesn't mean it's bad. So I find the unique selling points. I've gotten pretty good at finding the right audiences for what our games are trying to do. And what I noticed about myself, and I know you just mentioned you're not a roguelike fan. I also thought I was not a roguelike fan until I started noticing later on that all the games I'm playing a lot recently are roguelikes. And I'm like, why is that? I'm not a roguelike fan, but I think it just becomes like it works for me right now. So
yeah,
if I would have had to sell a roguelike game 5 years from now, before I realized I really like roguelikes, I could have still tapped into that, right? It's like, hey, it's the pick up and play part of the game that you really enjoy, because you've enjoyed like Binding of Isaac, you enjoy Hades, you enjoy these kind of things, that run one more run feeling. And our new game, Balatro, for example, is a master in making you feel like one more run. Even if it's not for me, that's still true, because I see it in my coworkers who put a lot of effort into analyzing these games before we sign it. So that's how you can still stay honest. I think you will always notice it when I am genuinely like in love with one of our own games.
Yeah.
And
I not to like I have a very specific memory for very weird and specific things. But as soon as you started talking about Mortal Shell a while back, I was like, oh yeah, I was following you back then. And I remember you gushing about Mortal Shell like
I
years and
love
years
that
ago.
game. And
Yeah.
like that game is super hard. I'm not sure if you played it. Again, like Souls like not for everybody, right? But I can still recognize a good Souls like. I platinumed that game on PlayStation, and it's probably one of the hardest achievements I've ever done on the platform. So my enthusiasm for the game was genuine, and it isn't to say that if I work on a game that I find okay or is maybe not for me, my enthusiasm is not genuine. But I think you can still tell when, like, no, I'm in love with this game. Like, I'm very well known for my love for Dragon's Dogma.
Yes.
You can't fake that kind of enthusiasm. If I would have done the PR for Dragon's Dogma, it might have been too much. I don't know, maybe people were like, this guy is clearly full of it. There's no way this game is a 12 out of 10. So even something you got to bring it down to, I guess, because you can't get too high in your own supply there. But yeah, I think you could just get good at it after a while to find quality in genres, even if it's not for you, and still be able to honestly transfer that. I've been spoiled at Playstack that every game I've worked on, I can generally say that this is a good game. This is a well-made game. There's a lot of thought put into it, player-first approach. So I can always pitch that honestly, I think. And I think after a couple of like big games like Balatro and ABL Factors, games that do really, really well, you also build that level of trust with your audience, with my audience. My audience is like media and influencer and YouTubers. Because if I sell them a lemon, is that still an expression?
And I think so, yeah. It's one I've used in the past.
Yeah, and their audience is like, hey, you said this was great. And it's actually not. Like, my relationship also diminishes from that, right? So I always try to take a very honest and transparent approach. And maybe
it's no longer a win-win in that case.
No,
as
exactly.
we described earlier.
But there are outlets that are very specific about certain genres. So then I focus mostly on those folks, for example. Like, the puzzle genre is not for everybody. And not every big website covers, like, puzzle games, for example. Or every influencer. So if I go like, oh, this is the best puzzle game you ever played, and like I don't even care about puzzle games, like then it becomes not very genuine. But if I talk to someone who I know is really into that stuff, then it becomes a more honest conversation, I think.
Yeah. And bouncing off of something we talked about in this as well, like there is a certain amount of, I don't want to say controversy, but consternation, I guess, about using too many comparisons to other games.
Yes.
Is that something you think about when you're preparing a campaign like this?
All the time.
Because you have to like have some sort of frame of reference, right? But you don't just want to do like, it's this plus this. Buy it, please.
Exactly.
Like,
it's funny you bring it because I did a thread on Twitter or Blue Sky asking specifically that question. Like, hey, how do you feel about if a PR person pitches you a game that is like, hey, it's like this, but with this? Or it's like, hey, if you like this, then you might like this. And I think it came down to like a 50-50, which was very interesting to me. And I do this a lot, where when I want to know something, I just ask. I just go on social media and I ask, like, hey, how do you feel about this? Because it helps me, one, make me better at my job, and two, it makes it easier for you as a writer or a podcaster or a journalist to get better pitches. And it seems to me that people fall on either side of the fence with that. For some people, it's a lot easier when I say, hey, it's like Elden Ring, but anime or something like that, right? Then people can kind of picture it. But I think another good point that people made was like, well, if I like those two games, why wouldn't I just play this game? Why wouldn't I just play those games that I like instead? Why would I play it? What do you add? So I think if you do that, and it's so tempting. It's so tempting in a pitch to do that. You still have to show if it's an additive or not. Like, is it an iteration of the genre? Or does it add something new? And I think that's what people really want to see.
And you've mentioned like the idea of the unique selling point a lot.
Exactly.
And that's what you really start focusing on when you come into those scenarios.
Yeah. And how it works for me, like, you write a press release, and I will never do it in a press release. I will never reference another game unless it's by the same developer or whatever, or from the same publisher. Sure, like, from the publisher that brought you this, that's fine in a press release. But I will never put in a press release, oh, it's like this game mixed with that game. I think that is poor taste, to use other people's brands. But I might put it on the intro that doesn't get printed, right? Like when I say, hey, I got a cool press release, this is what we're gonna put out tomorrow. It's kind of like this. I think you might be interested in that, and it draws experience from or influence from that. Like, there, I'm a little bit more comfortable with it. But I would never put it like in the trailer, like Balatro. It's like card games. It's like Slay the Spire, but with poker. Like, I would never do that.
Okay.
Because I think that's just, why wouldn't you just play poker, and why wouldn't you just play Slay the Spire? I want to play Slay the Spire 2 so bad. I want to play it so bad. But yeah,
you ever
I
played
think
the board game?
I have never played the board game. But I love those guys. They're very, very nice. But yeah, so I think... but I also understand why people do like it. Because they get, I don't know, 30, 40 pitches a day. And if they can see right away, oh, this is not for me, then I'm not wasting their time either, right? Oh, this is a fighting game. Or like, this is like Street Fighter, but with bears. Like, I don't know, this is stupid... they're like, actually, I don't like Street Fighter games, or I don't like games with bears. Then they can immediately either pass on to someone else, and I'm not wasting their time. But for some people, they get really like, oh, well, I don't want another game that's like a game. I want a new experience. But I'm all now I'm going to go on a little bit of a tangent. I think we see a lot of people who want like, oh, I want new experiences. But I'm not always sure if that is true when you look at the numbers.
You want something that's just a little different, but mostly familiar.
Exactly.
Realistically speaking.
Exactly. And I worked on Gollum. And I know that was the hit game. I did the announcement of Gollum with the team before I left Evolve. And I thought... when we had the first playthrough and we showed this for the first time, I thought, hey, this is cool because this is something different, right? You don't play Aragon, you don't play the guy with the sword and the magic spells. This is like a stealthy game that you've never played before. And then all the comments were like, why do you want to play with Gollum? Why, where's the combat? I was like, it is something you've never played before. Like, why not embrace like an angle in the Lord of the Rings universe where, yes, it is all about stealth. You are a weak character who can still choke out an orc every now and then. But I found that a little rough in the beginning. Like, I'm not saying, oh, everybody should have given Gollum a chance and it's actually a good game. I'm not saying that at all. But I think the premise of a brand new game that does something entirely new is something people think they want. But it doesn't always hit that way.
Yeah. And it's interesting you use the example of Gollum being like a new take on something in Lord of the Rings, because I have seen, well, up until it released to middling reviews, I suppose.
Middling. Middle earthing.
Well, about the game I'm about to mention, I think, like, public enemy number one for me, Tales of the Shire of the Lord of the Rings game.
Yeah.
I just hate that title. I hate the Lord of the Rings game so much. Mm-hmm. As an enjoyer of the English language, that like that is something that was also not really done before in the Lord of the Rings space, right? You had a lot of like action adventure games. You had some real time strategy games, Battle for Middle Earth 2, my beloved, and you had the Return to Moria, I think, which was sort of like a management sim, Deep Rock Galactic-y like mining game.
Yeah.
But Tales of the Shire is just, it's like Harvest Moon, but in the I'm doing it. I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
It's like Harvest Moon.
I know what you mean now. Like it helps.
Yeah,
It
but
helps
in
people.
the Shire.
Yeah. Yeah, and I don't think anyone has ever been like, I'm gonna like a White Knight for the game Gollum. But it had so much potential, that game. I don't know how we ended up here, but like that game had actual lore, like brand new lore that was like approved by the Tolkien estate. Like there was a story there that you never heard before, and it just like didn't do it. And it did it. I know the game was like not as good as it should have been, could have been maybe even. But I think like that new experience, it had something that people were not willing to play as Gollum. I think maybe if the game had been fantastic, it would have like changed minds. But unfortunately, didn't have the chance to do that either.
Do you think that maybe the fact that there was that specific perception of the Lord of the Rings brand about, big epic adventures and action and all this stuff, and then like if it was, let's say, mechanically basically the same game but not with the Lord of the Rings brand, and just a unique thing, do you think that would have changed much, hypothetically speaking?
Yeah, it could have. And I think that those are the interesting what ifs, right, on stuff that doesn't work. And I think there's also interesting what ifs on stuff that did work. Like, what if Balatro had monsters instead of jokers? Like, what if the boss blinds were characters? Then it might also not have made the simplicity work, but I think the other way around is more interesting. What could have worked? And I think that's a good question. I think there is a lot of franchises that benefit from a name like that. Like, I don't know, if you make a 3D platformer that is not Mario, will you stand out? I don't know.
Yeah.
It's hard to tell, right? Sometimes you just benefit from the lore and from the world building that's already been established for you. But we can talk about what ifs for hours on some titles.
For sure.
I think, but I don't know. I didn't plan on talking about Gollum today, but I think it was an interesting one for me from a PR perspective, where you have something unique, and people are just like, nope, right out of the gate. But yeah, it happens, I guess.
And do you spend a lot of time, I mean, obviously a lot of what Playstack has done recently has been quite successful, but how much time do you spend analyzing like what doesn't work and maybe why it didn't work? Because obviously there's so many factors, as we talked about before, that could affect something. But do you spend a lot of time analyzing that?
Yeah, for sure. Like we have certain check-in points, I think. And for Balatro, failing fast was super important. Otherwise, it could have been a disaster. If we didn't realize,
you don't want to Roman Reigns it.
Yeah, exactly. If we would have like, oh no, we're gonna do this trailers, and the first trailer got like 8,000 views, and we're like, oh, we're gonna do another trailer with a better trailer, then it wouldn't have gone the way it had. So failing fast and realizing what works, what doesn't work is immediate for that. But for other games, we just do post-mortem, right? Okay, we did all these things. What can we learn from it? What can we transfer to other campaigns? What are some good beats that could work? And nothing is a one-for-one. Like, what works for one game might be a good strategy, and you can use some of it. I think what's more important is that you learn from it. But a very important lesson that we learned from the first Mortal Shell campaign is that we did too much. And I talk about this every now and then. So Mortal Shell launched just around the COVID times, where a lot of in-person events became online events. So we had the game, and the first trailer did super, super well. Everybody wanted a piece of Mortal Shell, and we were like, yes, everybody's gonna get a piece of Mortal Shell this summer. It was like E3 still, I think it was still called E3, so we're gonna be on this show, and then we're gonna go on the PC Gamer show. They're gonna get this asset, and we spread our assets out so much that by the fourth time people saw Mortal Shell, it was a part of the tutorial, which was not great. Like a Souls-like tutorial is often like you're walking around and you fight two things while you learn the mechanics. And in Mortal Shell was also very similar. Like you basically walk through like a nothing lake, which like where you get born basically. And then we had like, I don't know, 9 minutes of that with one person just walking in an empty space, learning the mechanics of the game. And we thought, oh, this is cool. People can see the whole. And then all of a sudden we saw the hype deflate, like, is this what the game is? And I think that was important to learn, that sometimes you don't want to show too much. You want to go dark every now and then, and let people think about the game or like come up with their own ideas on what's next. And that was a very important lesson to learn. Like sometimes you spread yourself too thin. But I think for every campaign that we'll do now, we'll learn to fail fast. If something doesn't work, don't tie yourself to an idea, because you have to be flexible and be able to maneuver fast and turn on a dime sometimes. Because you can't afford to fail in a weird way. Like there are so many games coming out. You'll be washed out if you stick to bad ideas, I think.
Yeah, honestly, yeah, like that, honestly, that's more or less what I was expecting to hear, but it is good to have it be confirmed.
See, you're so smart.
I like to think so occasionally. So I had another topic that I wanted to ask about, and that is sort of crossovers, and I had two points about that. One we mentioned earlier, the Friends of Balatro, Friends of Jimbo
yes.
updates. I had it written down in my notes, and then my brain went to autopilot, and that just happens sometimes. So yeah, the Friends of Jimbo updates. How does inter-studio communication work there? Like, who approaches who?
Yeah. So I think that's going to be a lot more casual than you think it is. So that basically started with me DMing the PR manager at CDPR, and I sent him a Photoshop of Geralt holding a Joker. And I was like, because he was talking about Balatro like every day because he loved it so much. Nice. Everybody in the company was playing it. And I've known him, like I've worked on Cyberpunk a little bit when I was at Evolve. So we had a pre-established relationship. So I sent him to that, and I was like, hey, you want to do something cool? And they were like, yes, let's do this. And of course, they were not going to put Jimbo in Gwent in a game that's already very established. But around that time, we came up with the idea of the face cards swap, right?
Yeah.
And we're like, that is such an easy way for us to update the game every now and then and do some cool new stuff. Local Talk was on board with that as well. And of course, at first we're like, can we do like themed Jokers? But that is not something he wants to do. And I also no longer, I think, want to do because that's very complicated. Because then all of a sudden you have to think about which Joker is better than the other. And why is the Witcher Joker better than the Dave the Dive Joker? Like that's not a conversation you want to be in. So the face cards it was. So that was one. And then I think I just DM'd Victoria Tran from Innerslav, like, hey, you want to do a cool collab? And then Vampire Survivors came along because I also knew Gio, the manager there, very well. And Dave the Diver came along around the same time. And that is also a funny story because that relationship happened because one of my coworkers was at, I think it was GDC or maybe Gamescom, and his laptop battery was dead, and he asked the Mint Rocket booth there, hey, can I plug in my laptop for a little bit? And they started talking about Balatro and all that kind of stuff. And like, hey, maybe we can do a cool collab. and that was the first double crossover that we did, where you can play a piece of Balatro in Dave the Diver as well, and
Nice.
then we
Yeah.
got the
Oh, yeah, I
cards
remember
back
that.
as well. So that was like very very casual. The first round was a lot of outgoing stuff. Hey, we want to do that. Then we did it on Nintendo, and then I think it quickly switched to incoming collab requests, where people were like, "Oh, can we
I
also
imagine just
can we do it with Friends of
everybody-
Jimbo?" Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, everybody just wants a piece of the action. Just like, ooh, Balatro is huge and we all love it. Please put our thing
Yeah,
in Balatro.
And the way we pick these things is because we see a lot of enthusiasm for the game. And like none of these are cash grabs because first of all, cards are free. We don't charge
Yeah.
anyone to be in the game. Nobody gets paid for this. The player doesn't have to pay a cent. So it's all like cool collaborative stuff. So we did the second one where we did Slay the Spire, Binding of Isaac, which was just Binding of Isaac was also funny because Ed McMillan posted on Twitter, "Hey, I'm at the airport. I got 20 minutes. Ask me anything." So I went onto the Balatro Twitter account and I was like, "Hey, you want to do a cool collab?" And he was like, "Yes." And that's how that one happened. Like, like that's the story.
Nice.
And then it became a little bit more organized on our end, where we had like the contracts lined up, and so we could like reach out, and other cross collaborations also started to happen. And then I was like, I'm gonna go all out on this, and I'm gonna call Ubisoft. Like, can we get Assassin's Creed? Actually,
Yeah.
I think that they emailed me first, to be quite honest, and I was like, yeah, let's make this work. But you know, the bigger you go, the more complicated it gets a little bit from a legal perspective. But so far,
because you have to
everyone
start dealing with like licensing.
worldwide licensing, ownership, and all that kind of stuff because they are huge brands. But then as soon as I started talking to people from like Ubisoft and like all those giant brands, where I'm like, I can't believe this is happening. That was just super super cool. And then of course we did the third one where we went like with 8 packs, and then we had the live action trailer with Ben Starr, which was fantastic, which became a whole thing with him as Jimbo. But like it's surprising that most of these collaborations happen because people just know someone somewhere. Like I get emails that, "Hey, good seeing you at GDC. We'd love to chat, see if we can get Game X into Balatro." And I'll be like, yes, pretty much always yes, unless there's like strong concerns about something. And that's what I think I like about this industry, and that people might not see a lot of it. It's just a bunch of people who want to do cool stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I think maybe thanks Fortnite that those IP crossovers have become a little bit more normalized. People see like, hey, you actually can do that kind of stuff. And Balatro being, I see people calling Balatro like the Fortnite of roguelikes when it comes to the crossovers. That was very cool. So we've done 4 now, and we're, like a 5th one will happen at some point. But we want to make sure that we have an update first, because if you just keep pushing out cosmetic updates time after time, people don't get bored of them, but what they really want is new chokers and new content. So we'll get that done first. But yeah, it's honestly, it's just people emailing each other. Hey, you want to do something cool? Yes. Okay, let's deal with the paperwork. Let the lawyers take a look at it. Just make sure we're cool. Because we are cool with each other, but like in 5 years from now, when we've both maybe moved on to different departments or different platforms or whatever, then someone needs to have a paper trail. Like, are we allowed to use Ezio in Balatro? Like, you need to have that figured out. So yeah, but that's very cool. It became almost like a part-time job for me at Playstack to do this stuff, because it is a lot of work to get the artists lined up and make sure everybody gets paid, and to get the licensing contracts done and stored and in a good place. But that's been probably one of the most fun I've had with this campaign, because I got to, and then now just like me being a little boy, getting to go to like the Ubisoft headquarters in San Francisco and like seeing how that looks, that was just super super cool. So I'll be
Wow.
doing those collabs forever because I enjoy it on a personal level a lot.
That's good.
But what I like about how Local Thunk approaches this is he always wants to add like the smaller indie games and then pack them up with like some of the big brands. So we get the eyeballs from the big brands, and then like adding 1,000 times resist was super cool for me because I will love that game. And I don't think enough people played that, but packing them up with like a bunch of big titles that got a lot of attention. I think they mentioned in an interview like that gave them another round of visibility, and people discovered the game through this kind of stuff, and that's very satisfying to me that we get to uplift some of those other indies, which is something we've been always trying to do, even if it's not titles that we work on at Playstack. I always love giving them a shout out when I can.
That's something I don't think a lot of people realize. And I admit I'm coming at this as like mostly an outsider. Obviously, as I previously said, I have no experience with like game development or game publishing or anything like that. But this industry is just a lot smaller than I think a lot of people might think it is.
Yeah.
And when I say small, I mean like a lot of these things come about because so many people just know each other.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and that's true because when you look at the overall headcount, it's thousands and thousands of people, and I don't know thousands of people, but like the Kevin Bacon thing that the 6 degrees together, like that is very very strong in the game industry, and it's probably like two degrees of separation between anyone, and that makes it a lot easier to get a hold of people, and especially when you start working with some brands that and some people that just touched a lot of stuff, those connections become even closer, and you hang out, and there's discords for developers where people hang out, so Local Thunk can talk to other developers there, and our Abiotic Factor developers talk with the Balatro guys, and but that I think that's cross industry. It's not as competitive as people might think. Like, yes, sometimes it sucks when a game launches on the same day that you are, but that is not like we're not mad about that on a personal level. It's just like, oh, there goes my campaign.
It's
maybe.
not done maliciously.
Exactly, right? And I think people just enjoy each other's work, because I think most of the people who work in this industry are working in this industry because they love video games, and the people you interact with are people that make video games or work on in the field at some level. So I think there's a lot of people are amicable with how we do things, and it's how a lot of cool stuff happens as well. I think a lot of creative products start somewhere at a hotel lobby bar after a conference. We're like, we should do something cool together. And I've definitely been part of those conversations, which is very, very fun.
Also in this vein, so was it you who contacted Charlie Brooker, or Charlie Brooker who contacted you for Black Mirror?
They reached out. And this is also, I have a lot of funny stories about the last year and a half. So we got an email, Logothunk and I, because I handle his inbox. Bastard. He gets so much email. We got an email from, I don't know, some person to say, hey, we would like to use a thing of Balatro in this Netflix show. And then as soon as we Googled that person on LinkedIn, we could clearly tell that was from Black Mirror. So the first reaction was like, is this real? Like, because this was very early on, like very early on. I think this was in May, because I remember I was in London at the Playstack head office, and he was there too. So we were like, is this an actual thing? So we looked into it. It looks to be legit. And that whole deal happened in an Uber from the Playstack office to the airport, because I was heading back, and that was done.
Wow.
Like we got the PDF, our CEO signed it, it went back, and then it was like, yeah, we're done. You can use it. And that was such a surprise, because it was like, when they pitched it, it was like, it's just going to be a couple seconds of someone playing Balatro on their Steam Deck or whatever. So we're like, okay, that sounds pretty cool. I think we did put a caveat, like, can we make sure that it's not like an episode about someone losing his life to addiction and Balatro somehow fits into that? Because that would not have been cool probably. But they were like, no, it's unrelated. It just Charlie Brooker loves the game, and he would love to put a cameo. And I was like, sure. And then the episode came out almost a year later, I think. Quite a bit later. And then when the episode airs, I thought it's just going to be someone playing it in the background, right? But no, it's like full screen twice where he like takes a shot of a laptop of someone playing this game. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh boy, this is not optimal gameplay. Like the subreddit is gonna lose their minds over this, and of course they did. And I think it was like the tutorial or something because they're not gonna like get a couple rounds in like on the shooting day and like get the optimal gameplay setup. No, they're just gonna turn it on and get a shot. But it was super cool, super cool. So that's something I got very excited about. And I love seeing now Balatro pop up in other stuff as well. Like we just had a costume in Dying Light. You can play Balatro in Dave the Diver. There is a reference. There's a Balatro machine in Don't Starve, which is a game I have a lot of cool memories of. Like, and that is just so cool to see it become part of like pop culture almost.
Yeah.
And I saw...
I have a cool example that you may not have seen. Yeah. Probably did, actually. I'm a pro wrestling fan.
Yeah.
If the Roman Reigns reference from earlier didn't...
Speedball Bailey?
Clear. Speedball Mike Bailey.
Yeah. I saw that he had a whole costume. I was like, dude, that's so awesome. So when I see that, I'll reply from the Balatro account because I run the Balatro Twitter account. But also, like, I saw Jack Black talk about it on the red carpet for the Minecraft movie. I know James Gunn has been talking about it, and I'm dying to get his attention. Dying to get his attention from the Balatro account, but he's mostly on Threads, and we don't really have presence there. Because if that dude, maybe if he's listening, James, if you want a Balatro cameo in your next movie, done deal, man. Had he talked about it earlier, maybe we could have gotten this Superman, but we'll wait for his next movie, I think, which is Supergirl. But it's still wild to me to see like those kind of people talk about the game you worked on, and just to see how deeply it is ingrained now in people like outside the bubble, you know, because it's cool to see people playing in the industry like, oh, I really love it, but to see like the mainstream people talk about it on like mainstream channels is just wild to me. Like, hey, I helped with that, which is pretty cool.
Because I'm genuinely like trying to think of another recent example of a game that started out pretty modestly capturing all like mainstream attention this way.
Yeah.
And honestly, the last one I can think of is like Minecraft, probably.
Yeah, I would never compare ourselves to Minecraft, obviously. But I think the power of Balatro is accessibility on the phones, and like you don't need to know what like a mana curve is, right? For Balatro, you need to know what a full house is, and it's probably the peak of your knowledge that you need to have. I know it feels hard to come up with an example, but I know like my mom plays Tetris, but that's the only video game that she played. I'm not sure like how long she's been playing Balatro, but like I think it's one of the games that if you show it to someone who doesn't play, I showed it to my father-in-law who never plays video games, and he looked at it for 5 minutes. He was like, I get it. Like I can see how this is a thing, and I think that's just almost a unique thing about Balatro, how easy it is to pick up and how quickly it gets that its claws in you. For some people, not for you, but that's fine. I'm not offended by it. But yeah, no, it's very, very cool, and it's just out of control. Like I was talking to Britt, our social media manager, about social media at work, and it's almost embarrassing how once you get to the level of popularity of Balatro is how everything else is easy. Like we work on accounts, and you have to you have to get good copy, and you have to get like a good asset for your social media campaign. And I can go on the Balatro account now, and I can type egg, and then I'll get like 14,000 likes on it. Like it's stupid. Right? It shouldn't be that easy.
It's almost self-sustaining at this point.
Yeah, exactly.
It feels like.
Exactly that, and it feels so. Sometimes when I get a question like, "Oh, how did you do that?" Like in the beginning, yes, it was a lot of work. Nowadays, it's just amplifying hype. I think it's amplifying success, which make it a lot easier to do it. I know.
You started the wheel of attention spinning, and now it's just a perpetual
Yeah,
motion
no, I just
machine.
need to keep my fingers
Like-
out of it, otherwise I'll lose them. It's very funny.
Is that a concern that you have sometimes when you're preparing a campaign or when you're in the middle of something? Like, do you ever get the temptation to sort of like, ooh, if we tweak it, maybe it can go even better?
Oh yeah, that is something you have to fight against all the time. And I think sometimes that is just driven by, okay, what else can we do? Like when Balatro took off, our main concern was, what if it stops overnight, right? Like, what are we leaving on the table? And I think part of that is why the mobile version came out fairly quickly, because you have such a whirlwind, and if you don't do mobile now, and you're too slow, and you put all that effort into the mobile version, and then nobody cares anymore, like then it's a wasted time and money. So I think a lot of the time you have to see what your opportunities are, and I think we learned a lot because we have some merge done, but we never had merge done at the levels that we are doing now. But we had no plan for that. We had no plan to start a merge line and to get artists and to get that kind of development. So you spend time on that, but maybe I should have spent time on ads, or maybe I should have spent time on a new trade. Like, and that was a constant like weighing, I think, of effort. But every day I'm scared that it just ends, especially when I'm talking about all these collaborations, like stuff that we haven't done yet. Like, hey, like we can do this. It's gonna take us some time. I hope we're still popular by then. Otherwise, I'm sorry. But yeah, no, it is definitely like, now that it's going, I don't need to do much. I don't need to reinvent the wheel, like literally again, which makes it easier. But you never know. Like I always feel it can disappear overnight, and I think we've seen it with a lot of projects where it doesn't take much to derail your success. And I'm glad that Local Thunk is a developer that cares a lot about quality. So like, he's been very open that he's working on an update. It will come, and we said like, 2025 is going to be an update, and people assume that when you say 2025 is going to be updated, it's January 1st, which is not true. It's still 2025, people. It's still 2025. But I think one of the challenges is anything that gets added to the game now has to be good. It has to be good, because it's such an evergreen title that if like thousands of people are still buying Balatro every day. If we do an update now and people just buy it tomorrow, for example, then it still needs to be a great experience and not just cater to the people who've already put like 400 hours into it. So that's why he's making sure that it's good and that it's well balanced and all that kind of stuff. So it takes a little bit of time. But if you don't do that, if you like, he could have just, I don't know, pushed an update. You know, here's 10 new Jokers that are completely broken or unbalanced. That could have maybe ruined everything. And I'm glad he's not that type of developer. But I think the temptation would be there for a lot of people to, try to maximize my profits on this. And I'm going to do this update, and then I'm going to do a battle pass and a season pass. Like, that could have happened with another developer. Luckily not with him, because I think that would have probably ruined everything. But yeah, no, I'm a little scared of the beast sometimes, but as long as it listens to me, then I'm happy.
You know what game I'm reminded of that also has this amount of like, it's not as saturating as Balatro is at the moment, because it's quite a bit older, although saying that in the grand scheme of video games anyway, is Stardew Valley.
Oh yeah,
like that game came out like what, 2015 16, maybe even earlier. And there are still people to this day, I know one of them personally, who are ravenously excited for the new updates.
Yes.
They're not very frequent, but they are all quality.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like Concern 8 is kind of the same as Local Funk in that regards. I think they both have a luxury where they can just do whatever they want, obviously, at this point. So they can take their time, they can make sure it's good, and they just like working on their games. And I think that that comes through in the quality of the updates that Stardew Valley is still seeing. I also love Stardew Valley, man. I've got so many hours in that. I had to control myself when I was talking to Concerned Ape about the collab we did to not geek out and tell him about my spreadsheets of how to set up my sprinklers when I was supposed to be working. But no, I think that I hope we have the till that Stardew Valley has. But I think that's also one of those games. There, it doesn't matter if you picked it up at launch or if you pick it up today. It's equally good. And I truly believe Balatro has the same quality. That it doesn't matter if you picked up lunch, you pick up tomorrow. It's almost a identical experience. We haven't had the update yet, but that's the goal. That even with the update that he's working on, that is the same experience as if you picked it up at launch, just more stuff.
Because it feels to me that you see this a lot with especially MMOs. Like a recent example I have, this was like last year, but still, is I was kind of done with Monster Hunter Rise. I'd played it for 400 hours. And I was like, okay, the next Monster Hunter isn't out yet, but I do want like a big game I can sort of chip away at. And so me and my friend and co-host of a different podcast, Seskra, we decided to try Destiny 2 because, hey, the initial experience is free. And if we like what we see, we'll like buy the expansions to get the story content and stuff. But Destiny 2 and other MMOs of its ilk that have been going on for a while get so lost in the sauce of adding new currencies and weekly quests and all of this stuff. And as a new player, that can be so overwhelming. And with Balatro, because, I mean, it's not an MMO, so it doesn't have to necessarily have that kind of, like, weekly engagement. It just does that by being a very compelling game on its own.
I 100% agree. Like, Destiny 2 is probably my most played game, second most game ever. I have so much time in Destiny 2. And I know I've been playing a lot, and then I drop off, and then I come back, and every time I come back, I'm like overwhelmed with new stuff, and that's, I think, the experience. Like, it's very easy to come back into it, I find, once you pick up the play again. That's what we don't want Balatro to be when you have that big update, right? You can't have complexity creep in your Joker setup. Like, it still has to be new player friendly and exciting for both players, and that's quite a challenging thing to balance, I think. But he'll nail it. Like, that dude is like annoyingly good at everything he does, so I'm sure he'll nail this one too.
Annoyingly good is, I feel like, one of the best compliments you can give someone.
Oh yeah, I tell him that to his face too, so don't worry about it. Like, like everything, man. Like, he can paint, he can draw, and he writes well. Good looking too. What a bastard! Local punk. No, it's good though. He's good. Like, I think part of his success is just because he's just so dedicated to the craft, right? He puts his heart in it.
Alrighty, that was everything I had prepared. Is there anything else that you felt like sharing about anything we've talked about today?
No, I think it's just fun. I think people who are interested in this kind of stuff, I think there's a lot of resources out there. Like, go to the GDC Vault, and like, there's a lot of talks that are free available. And there's so many topics that experts are in the field are talking about. And I know that if you are looking to get into this industry, right? And I think for a lot of people that feels like the dream to work in games. It might seem very inaccessible at times, but there are so many levels to this. Like, not everybody who works in the video game industry is a developer. Not everybody is an artist. There are so many jobs. You can also work in the video game industry in HR and have like one of the coolest jobs in HR that you can probably get because it's such an interesting industry. So don't like make it so difficult for yourself and like, oh, I have to be a developer, I have to know how to code. No, like, I don't know how to code. I pretended to be a cat on the internet, and I had no connections in the industry before that, and now I do what I do here, right? So educate yourself on that, and there's actually talks about that too, like all the levels, all the things you can do in the industry. But I always appreciated like a podcast like this that just asks questions and help like lift that curtain a little bit, because there are sometimes there are people like, this is how stuff works, and it's just absolutely not how it works. And I also, working at a publisher, we kind of have a reputation of being like mustache twirling evil people sitting on bags of money. We actually do a lot of work to help these games succeed, and like a lot of time and effort goes into this thing, and there's no like animosity between developers and publishers. Like I'm sure there's bad stories out there, but everyone I know and everybody I work with are just very dedicated to help developers do cool stuff, and all that information is all out there. You can just ask questions. You just ask questions and we'll answer questions sometimes. Not like when it's the release date of the new update. I can't tell you that, but like there's other stuff I can talk about. Yeah, so that's kind of, and of course check out all of Playstack games, because we do a lot more than just the silly little card game. We have a bunch of stuff coming out. We have a Void Breaker coming out soon, which is like a roguelike FPS, which is amazing. Also made by a solo developer who made the Entropy Center before this. We still got Unbeatable coming, which is the anime rhythm game. Looks amazing. Abiotic Factor just launched. If you like multiplayer games, want to hang out with your friends in an underground lab and have shenanigans, definitely check it out. And there's a bunch of other titles that we still have as well. So check it out. And like I said before, like scroll down the page every now and then where you're looking for new games and see what you can discover. Because there's so many cool games out there, and not everybody has had the luck of a solid marketing campaign to get the attention that it might have deserved. So definitely check it out.
Yeah. Here's my hot tip for people looking for something interesting that you may not have heard of on Steam. Spilled.
See, I don't think I've heard of that game.
It's also by a Dutch developer, which is most of the reason I know it exists. But it's very good. I enjoyed it a lot. It's very short. It has a very good, powerful message, and I had a great time playing it. So I highly recommend checking it out.
It looks good. Almost 2,000 reviews. Very positive. It's very good. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for inviting me and letting me talk about stuff that I care about, because I do love my job and I love talking about it. So always appreciate the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It's I'm hoping to do more interviews like this, because I said this I think at the top of the show as well, but also to you privately, like I, on a personal level, I'm just interested in a lot of this and learning how it works. Not necessarily because I want to do this job, but just I want to understand the industry better, you know?
Yeah, that's good.
And I feel like being able to spread the information and making sure that things that have to do with this kind of thing get reported on accurately and not just based on assumptions that people have from outrage merchant YouTubers sometimes.
There's a couple of those.
Yeah.
No, I appreciate it.
Yeah, and I hope to accomplish that with this podcast, and I think we did a good job with it. So thank you very much for coming on.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. All right. Awesome. I'm gonna go have some lunch and then call it a day.
Yeah.
All right.
And for those of you who are listening to the podcast, sorry, I have to do the spiel at the end too. Be sure to share it with friends. Check us out on YouTube, youtube.com/@GamePodular. Also check out our Twitch, twitch.tv/GamePodular, where we stream games sometimes. And our VODs channel, youtube.com/@GamePodular, streams highlights, a name that I regret making that long, but that's my own fault.
It is what it is.
I hope everybody enjoyed listening to this podcast. I know I certainly had a great time with this. And we'll talk to you all next time with a return to our regularly scheduled programming.
All right. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hey everybody, Hilke here. I just wanted to say thank you for listening to this episode of N Focus. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes. It really helps us get noticed. And also tell your friends if you think they'd be interested. Word of mouth really helps too. This is obviously a different episode than our usual fare. With Rosalie on vacation, I wanted to try something a little new. And if this is the kind of thing that you like listening to, if you want to hear more of these like industry stories, inside baseball, behind the scenes things, please let us know either on Discord or on Blue Sky, because I loved doing them, and if you want to hear more, I will do my best to try and get more interviewees, because it was an absolute delight. You can listen to this and everything else we do on Spotify and other podcast services and our YouTube channel. If you are listening on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell us about your favorite new fact that you learned about PR from this episode. Also, please be sure to check out our sister show GamePodular Unfocused. Follow us on Blue Sky and at GamePodular.com for updates, news, and other content. Links to all of our socials, including our Discord, Mastodon, Blue Sky, may be found at our Linktree. If you'd like to support our shows, you can buy us a coffee or become a patron on the GamePodular Patreon. The details for both are on our website. Thanks. This episode was edited by me, and you can follow me at Gear12Turbo at kind.social on Mastodon or gear12turbo.bluesky.social on Blue Sky. I was joined today by Wout, who you can find at the hashtagonist.bluesky.social on Blue Sky. Have a good one. Hello and welcome to N Focus, coming to you this week from the shop in the casino. My name is Hilke. I am your host, as always. Joining me today is not my co-host, Rosalie. We'll talk about that more in a second. But first, I would like to remind everybody that we have a Patreon. That's patreon.com/GamePodular. If you want to send us money there, you can. You don't have to, but we would really appreciate it. If you're listening to this on YouTube, youtube.com/@GamePodular, hey, source us an interaction, put a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel if you're not. Also, very much appreciated. Now, this is going to be a little different of an episode than what you're used to. Rosalie's on vacation, and so we decided we wanted to do something new and interesting, and to that end, I have lined up an interview with a very special guest. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do?
Yeah, sure. It's not every day somebody calls me special, so I'll take that. I'm Wout. I am the communications director at Playstack. Playstack is recently mostly known for Balatro, I suppose. We've done a lot of work with that. And we also launched Abiotic Factor last week, actually. And we have a pretty cool lineup. And my job is to be responsible for the PR, for the influencers, and I have a team with me, not with me on the call, that are taking care of all the social media for all the accounts and the community management. So it's kind of a big a big group of work that I overlook, but it's been a lot of fun. We had a crazy year, so always fun to talk shop with someone who's interested in what I do for a living.
Yeah, and that's sort of the way I'm approaching this, both for myself and for my audience, because I feel like there might be a lot of not misgivings, not the right word, just a sort of lack of general information about what being in PR entails and how it works. And I figured, like, hey, you mentioned Balatro earlier, and I don't mean for it to be like the only game we talk about, because again, you did do Abiotic Factor very recently, but given how much of a hit and how surprising it felt, even though we'll get into a little later about how that may not have been as surprising as people think, I felt like I wanted to get more information out there in the world.
That's always good, because I do see sometimes some hot takes where I'm like, ooh, should I respond to this or no? Or maybe people just don't know it, and maybe we should be more transparent about this stuff. So always happy to talk about this, about the work that goes into it, and how about it's not always just luck, and sometimes luck is just like being at the right time at the right place and benefiting from it a little bit.
But also just doing a lot of hard work, I imagine.
So much hard work, so many spreadsheets and emails.
So I guess at the start is you already sort of described what your role is. How did you get into this industry, as it were? How did you get into PR?
Oh, that's actually a funny story. I'm not sure if you have time for funny stories.
Oh yeah, we do a little both on this podcast.
That's good, because my career is a little odd the way it started, and I don't think it should be